Beantown to your town. This is the Beantown Beatdown.
Matthew Barris.
Gabe Chalmers.
And today is a special episode, countdown to UFC 214. Me and Gabe are actually going to go watch that fight this weekend over at Buffalo Wild Wings, and we'll be doing another countdown to showdown show over there at 9:15.
Cheers.
Yep, so make sure you tune in live. This is a Smirnoff Raspberry. I've had green apple before, so just wanted to...
Debuting for your first time, is that right?
Yep, and so far it is... Good. Wait, did I say blue raspberry, or...
I don't know.
Sorry, I'm just working on pure adrenaline here. Yeah,
exactly.
It's raspberry, not blue raspberry, but raspberry.
Right.
Alright, so now let's get into the... cards and predictions and what have you.
So this is for UFC 214.
Yep, and that will be taking place live at the Honda Center in Anaheim, California, home of the Mighty Ducks. And if you can't see it there, you can catch it on pay-per-view. And if you can't see it on pay-per-view, catch it at the local bar or theater. First off, Jim Manuwa, fan favorite, taking on Volkan Ozdemir. Sorry, it's in Russian. I can't pronounce it.
Ozdemir.
Yes.
Maybe.
An Ozdemir wiener. Well, I don't know too much about these guys. I've seen Jim Manuwa fight, so yeah, it should be a pretty entertaining fight. Should be entertaining. Also, the second fight of the night, and this involves two of my favorites. Robbie Lawler, the former UFC welterweight champion, taking on Donald, the Cowboy Cerrone. Yep, and Cerrone trying to get back into title contention at the welterweight division. And, you know, this should be an entertaining fight. I think somebody's going to get knocked out in this fight. And they're both my favorites. Also, it was rumored that Donald Cerrone is dating Selena Gomez.
Oh, really?
I mean, sorry, not Selena Gomez, Demi Lovato.
Okay, I was about to say Gomez. I mean, after Bieber, I'm sure anything is good.
Well, actually, Selena, she's been dating The Weeknd now, so...
Yeah.
I
I stand corrected.
For months now, so,
yeah, exactly. I stand corrected. Stay with The Weeknd.
Yes. Yeah, stay with The Weeknd, and you can feel him coming. I feel you coming. All right. And also, for the UFC's women's featherweight title, we will crown a new champion, the second champion, Christine Cyborg, taking on Tanya Evinger. Tanya Evinger, she's been around in Strikeforce and Elite XC and Evicta FC, and now she's taking on Cyborg. And, you know...
Is that actually Cyborg, like the robot? Like the
yes.
Name? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And, you know, this fight happened under... controversial circumstances. Jermaine Redamine, of course, defeated Holly Holmes to become the first champion, and then she dropped the title because of Cyborg's past usage of steroids. And even though the second time she was found not guilty, Jermaine Redamine decided not to fight her and drop the title. And you know, if I was the UFC, I would have fired her after that. I mean, I would have been like, listen, you're the champion. Despite what happened in the past, you're gonna fight her. If she tests positive again, we'll suspend her and give her a harsher punishment. Right. And now that, I mean, if I was Dana White, you know, or those people at William Morris and Evers, I would have fired the bitch.
Well, that's interesting history, and we'll see how it plays out. Isn't that right?
Yep, we'll see how that plays out. And that's the first title fight, and also the second title fight, UFC welterweight title, Tyrone Woodley versus Damian Maia. And this should be an interesting grappling match because Tyrone Woodley is a great wrestler, good at ground and pound. Damian Maya, a world champion jiu-jitsu black belt. He's won jiu-jitsu tournaments. His striking has come in pretty well. Not the best, but not the worst.
Right.
And this should be a very interesting matchup. I think this fight will go all 5 rounds. Although I think somebody could get submitted in this one.
All right, so that'll be another one to look for. So that's 2 of 3, isn't that correct? 3 title fights tonight, or that night.
Yep, and the main event, the 3rd title fight, the rematch, 2.5 years in the making, Jon Jones versus Daniel Cormier. And let me tell you something, Daniel Cormier, last time he fought Jon Jones, he lost. Jon Jones gave him his first defeat. Since then,
right.
Jon Jones gave up the title because of, the drugs and suspensions. And now Daniel Cormier has been the champion since then. And it's really a battle of who's the real champion, because Jon Jones says, you're not the real champion because you didn't beat me, and yeah, you have the belt, but you're not the real champion. So this should be a pretty interesting fight. In fact, you should have seen that press conference when they did the press conference for all the UFC fights coming up in the summer and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, Daniel Cormier and Jon Jones were just talking mad shit to each other. Daniel Cormier called him a junkie. Jon was like, "This junkie kicked your ass," and then Daniel Cormier called him a bitch ass nigga, and I was like, "What?"
Oh man, it's on now.
Yes, and this should be a very interesting fight. I mean, I've waited years for this rematch, and now it's finally going to happen. And of course, me and Gabe, we're going to be at Buffalo Wild Wings, getting drunk.
Check it, yep.
And shit, so looking forward to it.
Exactly.
And now we're going to get into some predictions for this first fight. I'm going to call it 50-50 on this fight. The Lawler versus Cerrone fight, another 50-50, although I do believe someone's going to get knocked the fuck out. You can believe that.
Take that to the bank.
Yeah, UFC Women's Featherweight title fight. I'm going to go with Cyborg in 2 rounds. 2-round knockout.
That's pretty confident. What makes you say that?
Well, she's a beast in Muay Thai. I mean, she's good at jiu-jitsu, but she's a beast in Muay Thai. You do not want to stand and bang with this bitch.
Gotcha.
As for UFC welterweight title fight between Tyron Woodley and Damian Maya, like I said, it will go to I think it will go all 5 rounds, but I think it'll be pretty interesting. And there might be a submission. I will leave a slight window of hope for a submission, but I think this will go all 5 rounds with Damian Maya being the winner. I'm going to go with the underdog in this.
Okay, all right.
And as for the main event, the Jon Jones versus Daniel Cormier fight, Jon Jones actually beat Daniel Cormier and actually out-grappled him, which I'm surprised because Daniel Cormier was an Olympic-level wrestler.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, Daniel Cormier was an alternate. Well, he made the Olympics, but he didn't medal.
Right.
But and Jon Jones, being just a college wrestler, I was surprised he actually dominated him.
Yeah.
But it's been 2 years since then, and I think the rust will be in on Jon Jones, so I'm going 50-50 on this one. So I got a lot of 50-50s.
I was about to say, a lot of 50-50s. I mean,
well,
I'm sure they wouldn't like that in the actual sportscasting world, but,
Well, hey, this is fighting. Anything can happen.
Exactly. Anything could happen. Anything could happen. Cheers.
Sia...
Ellie Goulding.
Oh, Ellie Goulding. Oh, yeah. I like her. She's hot.
Yep.
And now we're going to get into our blast from the past, and this is a special blast from the past because we've had 3 title fights that night at UFC 214. And with the Gennady Golovkin versus Canelo Alvarez middleweight title fight coming up, it was only best we do 3 title fights in the middleweight division, and these are 3 of the best middleweight title fights of all time. They are arguably. First, there was the Gene Fullmer versus Sugar Ray Robinson rematch, part 2, and that fight was awesome. I mean, 5th round knockout. Sugar Ray Robinson just went there, bam,
exactly. Yeah, and he was down. He literally didn't know what hit him.
Oh yeah, in fact, he was so out of it. In fact,
yeah, I think we both saw that interview where he was like, wait a minute, what? It's between rounds, and they're like, no, they already count to 10, and he's like, what? I didn't hear that shit.
Yeah, he said he said, "Hey, what is Robinson doing exercises up and doing jumping jacks in between rounds?" And they said,
Right.
"No, they counted to 10. The fight's over."
Yeah, he's like, what? Exactly.
Yeah, and that was just a good fight from the 50s. Really is. I mean, the middleweight division, actually the lower weight divisions, from featherweight all the way up to middleweight, were just awesome back then in the 50s. You had the Tony Zales, the Rocky Grazianos, Tony DeMarcos, Carmen Basilio, Sugar Ray Robinson, Kid Gallivan, and I mean, that's one of those fights. The Rat Pack would definitely be watching.
Exactly. Yeah, and it really does show like how how varied and how far back the history of of this goes. I was both our mutual friend Kevin and I were just shocked when about how far back boxing history goes. Actually, when you said to go look up and watch a fight from 1919. Didn't even know they had video, of the fights back then, but they did. And then there's recordings of the fights from the 1890s and stuff. I mean, it's crazy.
Well, yeah, exactly. And the thing about, I mean, Sugar Ray Robinson, easily the greatest middleweight champion of all time. People will say it's Marvin Hagler because he was the undisputed champion and held it until like 1987 until he lost up to Sugar Ray.
And hearing what you've said before, I feel like you feel like you're a pretty big fan of Hagler too.
Well, yeah, I mean, I am a fan of Hagler. I mean, of course he's a legend, and of course another great boxing legend out of Massachusetts here.
Right. But you're saying he's not the all-time champion.
Well, I think he's number 2 on the list. Sugar Ray Robinson, of course, 5-time world champion, had all great wars and was really he was Ali before Ali, with the dancing and the moving around.
Right.
He really made boxing a sweet science. And he's still considered today the greatest pound for pound fighter of all time. I mean,
fascinating. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. And the second middleweight title fight, that was Sugar Ray Leonard and Marvelous Marvin Hagler. And actually we did this fight on our 420 episode.
Oh yes, that's right.
Yeah,
yes.
We were both high as fuck.
Yes. So excuse me, the details are sketchy on that one, but yeah, that was another big title fight. Why don't you walk us through it, Matt?
Oh yeah, I mean, in my opinion, not only the greatest middleweight title fight in history, but the greatest fight of the 80s and the greatest fight of the Fab Four rivalry. The Four Kings, whatever you want to call them.
Right.
Duran, Leonard, Hearns, Hagler. I mean, Sugar Ray Leonard coming out of retirement and just gave Marvin Hagler a boxing lesson. Just moving, doing the shuffle. And remember that one part where he did the bolo punch where he went, bam!
Right, exactly. That's right. And that wind up was like nothing else. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then there was one point in the last round when Hagler had him in the corner in the last round, and it looked like he was done. Sugar Ray was done, and Sugar Ray just came back with flourishes, just went bam, 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 bam.
Sometimes you gotta punch your way out of the corner.
Well, yeah, exactly. And that was just. I mean, I've looked at that fight 1,000 times. I've seen it since I was a kid. I've watched it sober, drunk.
Right.
And let me tell you something. Sugar Ray won that fight. I mean, Marvin Hagler is still bitter about that. Says, "Oh, he didn't win that fight. He didn't fight me. He just ran. He didn't run. He was very strategic. These were loud shots. He stole the rounds. And Sugar Ray's secret to that fight was he would have his trainer yell out 30 seconds before the end of each round, and he would do a little flurry to steal the rounds. So he was strategic.
Right, 30-second warning. Yeah. I mean, we can all use that. We've all tried to use that, like on a test or something like that. So you might as well use it in the ring if you can.
Yeah, and Hagler was really frustrated by the moving and and stuff like that. The thing was, Sugar Ray, unlike all the other opponents that fought Hagler, the Durans, the Hearns, the Mugabis, John the Beast Mugabis, they didn't try to stand toe to toe and try to like knock him out or anything. They were more strategic. They boxed with Hagler instead of trying to slug it out with him.
Right.
And Hagler was really frustrated. In fact, if you look back at the end of one of the rounds, Hagler was calling him a bitch.
Mm.
You know, he was like, you know, stop running like a little bitch. You know, he said, fight me like a man, little bitch. Yeah, Sugar Ray was like, oh, no, you didn't. You know,
exactly. It's on now.
Yeah, and Sugar Ray, you know, just gave him that whooping, you know. Bam!
Like a whipping machine.
Oh, yes, most definitely. I mean, Sugar Ray was just really outboxing Hagler in that fight.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's really, like I said, the greatest middleweight title fight of all time, the greatest fight of the 80s, too.
Mm-hmm. Which I'm sure is saying a lot. Someone like you as a fan, you know, you kind of, well, I guess a few years off, but you kind of grew up with that, you know.
Well, yeah, I was born in 1986.
We both were, yeah.
Well, yeah, I was born in November. You were born in
June.
Oh, right, June. And yeah, you were born in June. Yeah, I should know this because your birthday passed.
Right.
And you were. So yeah, I was born.
So yeah, we had a little bit of the 80s. We had like the last stretch of the 80s, you know, under our belt.
Yeah, and of course, thanks to the wonders of Classic Sports Network and Blockbuster, I was able to look up these old fights and, you know, and just watch them. And I became a boxing fan after that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so you could say that this is what got you started on your fandom.
Well, yeah, I mean, the first real fight I remember watching was George Foreman and Michael Moore.
Okay.
When Foreman knocked out Moore and became heavyweight champion of the world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah.
And then started selling his grills.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, can you pour me a little... want to mix this here?
Mix a little red and green.
Yep.
All right, cool.
Hey, fill more up, dude.
Fill some in mine then too. How about that? How about da?
Where's? Oh wait, you don't have a glass. All right, but yeah, I'm just stirring this a little bit here.
Yep.
And then our third title fight in the middleweight division, and this is another one we previewed. It was Michael Nunn and James Toney.
Right.
Yep, and you remember seeing this fight too, you know, for one of our episodes, and you know, that was the night James Toney won the middleweight title from Michael Nunn. Right,
exactly. Yeah, and I had remembered it when I started watching it again for this episode. I was like, oh yeah, I remember this. There was I think was it Nunn who's throwing the punch when he was on the ropes, but then he the other guy slides away and he's basically like almost falling over the ropes.
Oh yeah, that was Tony. Yeah,
Tony almost falls over the ropes trying.
No, that was Nunn that almost fell. Well, Tony was in the black shorts.
Okay, yeah. It's hard for someone like me to keep track of it, but yeah, that was an interesting moment when he's like almost falling over, and it's a good recovery for the other guy because he's just back in the center of the ring, and then gets to have the center court advantage, if you will.
Oh yeah, and. The thing about Michael Nunn is, Michael Nunn at one point was actually considered another Sugar Ray Leonard. I mean, he was unlike Leonard, he was a southpaw, but Nunn, he had speed, he had agility, he had great boxing skill. In fact, he was actually trained by Angelo Dundee, who trained Leonard back in the 80s. And so this was...
Not Crocodile Dundee, no.
Yeah, Angelo Dundee, the famous trainer of Carmen Basilio, Muhammad Ali.
He didn't get the joke.
Oh yeah, no, I got it. I was just reminding the fans out there.
Yes, exactly. Anyway, let's keep going with that. He could have been another. He could have been another. Hagler, did you say?
No, Nunn.
No, Nunn could have been like another
Sugar Ray Leonard.
Sugar Ray Leonard, thank you. A little drunk as well, but yeah, Nunn could have been another Sugar Ray Leonard. So that's a interesting lost history, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, because Michael Nunn was a great boxer. Of course, later on, he fought and he lost some fights, and then of course, like I mentioned in one of our earlier episodes, the one on Circumscribe 7, back in the days when we were doing it in our basement, my basement, sorry. We, Michael Nunn went to jail for drug trafficking, cocaine, and I think last time I read, he's up for parole. Or he might be up for parole. He might be getting out soon. Yeah. So.
But yeah, as far as any of us are concerned, right now, his story's kind of ended there.
Yeah, and it's kind of a shame too, because Michael Nunn could have been where, like in the '90s, where Tony was, and then Roy Jones and Bernard Hopkins. Yeah. He could have been up there, like as one of the great fighters to go from middleweight all the way up to light heavyweight.
Right.
And actually, this fight, you look at both Nunn and Tony's career, it's like. In some sort of way, Tony came out the victor because he went up to super middleweight. He won the title there before losing to Roy Jones Jr. He fought at light heavyweight for a while, went up to cruiserweight, won a belt there. Then he won the heavyweight title. Of course, it was stripped from him because of steroid use. And I mean, of course, James Toney still fights now, but when you listen to him talk, he's punch drunk. You can't understand half a word he's saying.
Right.
Yeah, he's all man.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. You got to be able to, yes, maybe your skill isn't talking, but you got to be able to talk. You got to be able to talk trash at the press conference, and you got to be able to, gloat well enough. And, if you win.
It's from his punch drunk, and that's why he slurs his words.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, but I'm just saying that's part of the reason he can't go on to greater things.
And that's kind of a shame too, because right. That's one of those fighters. I'm like, why are you still fighting? I mean, I don't know if this is a money thing, or he wants to relive his old past glories, but
right.
It's like, it's just retire. You're tarnishing your legacy, and you have a good chance of going into the Hall of Fame. I mean,
right. And we've talked before about when should a fighter retire? When's a good time, and that sometimes your legacy is more important than continuing on. I mean. And then, especially with some of these greats, that their legacy is cut completely short. We commiserated about the fact that it looks like Ronda Rousey is just going on to the next thing.
Well, now Ronda Rousey's actually been rumored to be signing with the WWE.
Oh, okay. Well. Never mind. I guess that would be something. That would be at least her, coming back into something, some actual fighting, as opposed to coaching and TV like we.
WWE is scripted, choreography, violence. Oh, jeez, Gabe. I can see the fight fans now just being like, "What is you fucking WWE mark? You stupid fan. Don't you know that it's fake? It's been exposed as fake for decades now."
True, but I mean, you gotta at least think that it's something, as opposed to like what we said the last time. She's just gonna be on that show for coaches and stuff. Well, gotta think it's a little bit better than that.
Well, Battle of the Neckwood Stars. I mean, I haven't seen the rating. Actually, to be honest with you, I haven't seen much of the show.
Right.
So, but I gotta look at it, and maybe I can check and see what the ratings are. I don't know what the ratings are, but as far as, well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, she seems to be very happy over there with Battle of Neckwood Stars, but But at heart, she is a WWE fan, because if you ever read her book, she always, she talked about how she had a Hulk Hogan buddy doll and slept with it, and she had a crush on Hulk Hogan, and then she's talked about in the past how she's a huge WWE fan, and she did that one little cameo at one of the WrestleManias where she judoed through Stephanie McMahon, and the thing about her being in the WWE is I'm sure her fans will be there and they'll watch her if she joins it. But the other thing is this wrestling fans will be like, well, you lost two fights,
right?
And you were exposed. You weren't really like the badass people thought you were,
right?
And now we're supposed to believe that you can, that you're just going to be a big badass in the WWE. You're going to be like a female Goldberg and just run through everyone.
Well, yeah, but but for the fans that think it's fake and whatever, maybe they'll say that it's like the entertainment value, and that that it doesn't, if it doesn't actually mean anything in terms of actual wrestling, then maybe they will respect that she could dominate the entertainment value of it.
Well, yeah, and then there's the thing of, there's also a question of, is she going to go through the WWE developmental program? If she does sign, is she going to be over at NXT?
Okay. So what does that mean?
Well, the WWE developmental program, that's also in... it's in Orlando, Florida.
Okay.
The Performance Center, and they have rookies on their show called NXT. It's on the WWE Network, by the way.
Okay.
And they bring up, stars there. They have them be there for a while before they're called up to the main roster of either Raw or SmackDown.
Okay.
And, it's...
So you're saying, would she go through the same type of, a process that the beginners do?
Well, yeah. Well, not... Yeah, like guys who've been on the Independents, and when they wrestled on the Independents, they come into the Performance Center, and then they, they work on better promos and how to work the WWE ring, the WWE ropes, and stuff like that. There's actually an acting class in there as well, and sometimes they'll bring in guys who used to be wrestlers who work as road agents or work in the offices to come down and mentor them, like guys like William Regal or Triple H or Shawn Michaels. They'll have trainers there. The thing is, if she goes through that, then I think some of her fellow wrestlers will have more respect for her. As far as, but if she just is just already called up to the main roster, that could be some problems.
I see what you mean.
Because
so you're saying that the people are wondering, would she kind of skip the line, as it were? Would she kind of cheat her way into the front because of her previous championships, because of her history in the in the UFC and all that, or would she actually go through and do it the right way that all the other beginners do?
Well, yeah, because I can see right now if you're a wrestler right now in NXT, or if you're a WWE wrestler right now, you're like one of the top guys of top female wrestlers, and you went through that system, and you look at Ronda Rousey already getting a shot. You're like, can you believe this? I busted my ass on the Independents for years, and I busted my ass in NXT just to called up to the main roster, and this former UFC champion, she's already getting a call up without having to go through the
the process. Yeah. I can definitely see that, and she probably should go through the process. Just to play devil's advocate, what about those that say that she proved her mettle in the UFC, and so she's already done that? What about people that say that? And and frankly, she also has been in some movies, so she's maybe not that far ahead, but she is also a little farther ahead on the acting as well. What about that idea that she's proven it in other ways, so therefore she should be able to go ahead?
Well, for that it would I think some fans would really expect that, but for the most part, some WWE fans are like, are the fellow wrestlers. Like I said, they'll look at it as she's getting special treatment. If I was Triple H or Vince McMahon or Stephanie, I'd be like, well, actually, if I was all three McMahons, I would just be like, okay, look, let's let her go to the performance center. It's just to show that we're not playing favorites. We still have belief in her. We think she's going to be a huge star.
Right.
But let's just show them that we're not being favorites. And also, we don't want any tension between the girls.
Yeah. Yeah.
And let me tell you something, because if I'm a WWE, I mean, regardless whether she goes to the performance center, goes through NXT or not, if I'm a WWE diva, especially the ones that are on Total Divas on the E Network, I do not want Ronda Rousey coming through the door.
Right.
I do not want Ronda Rousey in my locker room because, as we all know in professional wrestling, there's kind of a hierarchy thing. There's sort of like a, pecking order. And,
right.
For a fake sport, it's very competitive because it's always about who's on top, who should get a title shot. And there's a lot of political backstabbing and bullshit. Right. And let me tell you something. Ronda's the type of person, she will not be bullied.
Yep.
She'll be like, listen, I earned my spot. I'm very athletic. I'm more believable than you people are. So you're not going to bully me.
Right.
And fuck you.
Right, exactly. So all that being said, I kind of want to know is, as we've talked about before, legacies being tarnished or going on too long. We've talked about, obviously we just, you just said again how you believe it's not, WWE is not really a real sport. So that stuff being said, do you think her going on to the WWE continues her legacy in a good way, or does that tarnish her legacy?
I guess it would. I guess it would depend. I mean, right. I mean, there have been in the past, like some MMA fighters who've gone on to professional wrestling, like Matt Riddle, who was on the season of The Ultimate Fighter with Forrest Griffin and Rampage Jackson. He was in the UFC for a while, and then he dropped off, and then he was in. Then I heard he was working. I think he's working Ring of Honor or New Japan Pro Wrestling, one of those promotions.
Okay.
And and there have been some MMA fighters who never got called up to the big leagues, and then they went to professional wrestling and stuff.
Right.
And I mean, I think it could be. I think she could have some success. I mean, of course she'll have to learn that hey, you got to pull back your punches. You can't. You can't really tug on the submissions and the arm bars and stuff, and because it's like you have to, because that's what you're taught when you go into wrestling school. That's the first rule is take care of your opponent's body like it was yours.
Fascinating. So I mean, in a way, this could actually teach her some of the better things that she might not have been taught in her stardom at the UFC.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, because when you go into mixed martial arts, you're taught to annihilate your opponent, finish him.
Right.
Where this is a simulated fight. It's not a real fight here in WWE, but you have to make it look real.
Right.
And of course, you being the rest, I could, because I don't know. I remember there was this famous online video at, I think it was like an old school NWA wrestling convention.
Okay.
Jim Cornette and Terry Funk and all the other wrestlers, they were there, and there was this longtime wrestling fan, and he was like, I remember watching you guys when I was a kid and stuff like that, and one of the things he said was, it's still real to me, damn it! And and the people on the panel, they were just amazed, and and I think I can imagine you just being one of those fans, like if someone goes, you still watch that fake shit. You're a 30-year-old man, and you'd be like, it's still real to me, damn it. I don't know. Is wrestling still real to you, or
right? Well, I mean, depends on what you mean by that. I mean, it's not like I don't follow it that closely, so maybe not. But yeah, I mean, the first on I guess unlike you, my kind of my kind of fandom into this type of stuff didn't start with either the classic boxing fights or the UFC. It did actually start with pro wrestling, and that was that was when I was in middle school and such. And the guys they liked that type of stuff. They liked Jericho, The Rock, who's the other guy? Or no, that's The Rock. You smell what The Rock is cooking. Anyway, they liked those guys, So yeah, it's not that it's still real to me, but it is that my first impressions and kind of the nostalgia I have is actually from that.
Well, yeah, I don't really watch the WWE Network as much. I mean, I kind of follow it by, the Don, Tony, and Kevin Castle show when they do the podcast where they talk review wrestling and stuff like that, and the characters and what have you. And
right.
But the thing is with pro wrestling is that there are certain wrestlers that still grab your attention.
Right.
Like today with Roman Reigns. I mean, I know people kind of get on him because they call him like the new John Cena, where the show revolves around him. But then there's also Samoa Joe. I mean, I saw Samoa Joe back when I was in high school, and he was in TNA. I mean, he's still amazing because he also had like that UFC style, strong styles they call it in pro wrestling.
Right.
And the Usos are still great. The New Day is still entertaining, and some of the stuff in New Japan Pro Wrestling, it's it's been great as well. I mean, of course, Japanese pro wrestling has always been a favorite of longtime wrestling fans.
Yeah.
And I mean, pro wrestling will always have a place,
right?
And especially when it's a pro wrestler who also who does MMA as well, like Bobby Lashley. In fact, Bobby Lashley, he's being pressured to take time off to go into MMA, to do more MMA stuff because he's with Bellator, and I think they're going to have like a heavyweight title tournament. Okay. And so, yeah, I mean, and plus I watch old school wrestling, I watch some stuff from like old school WCW, NWA, old school WWE.
Right.
So, I mean...
So, yeah, there's a place for it, but it's not, but yeah, I understand that for real, fighting or mixed martial arts fans, it's not, not the same thing. Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. Plus, it also helps when pro wrestling brings some elements of MMA into it, like the Kurt Angle Samoa Joe match at Lockdown. Where like they were in MMA shorts and they were doing submissions. Or like the match between Low-Ki and Samoa Joe, and or when they do like the training montages for like WrestleMania, like they've done it with Triple H and Daniel Bryan, or Triple H and Roman Reigns, and you see them like working out, and I remember this for the Rock and Brock Lesnar fight. You're seeing Brock Lesnar like doing his wrestling drills, his shuttles, and then you see the Rock, running shuttles, running up the steps of his old college of the University of Miami. You're just like, wow, and they should use more of that, because when you see the training montages and stuff, it's like you watch that and you're like, oh my god, I really gotta see this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's a good part of it, and they really should do more, especially with more people saying that it's that it's not so real and whatever. It's harder to say that when you see the training and that type of stuff.
Well, yeah, exactly, absolutely. Especially there was actually one segment where Bobby Lashley and Drew Galloway's they did a segment where they had a fight in an MMA gym. Bobby Lashley like showed up to an MMA gym.
Right.
He was like, all right, Drew, let's fight. And then he sees him there, and it looks like Drew's giving an interview, and Bobby Lashley just jumps him from behind, and they're just fighting, and people are looking around going, oh, shit, what's going on?
Right.
And then they go into the MMA part of the gym, the cage, and Bobby Lashley, like, puts him in the cage, locks the door, and he goes, you're in my world now, Drew, and then puts on an MMA glove, bam, hits him. And then, you know, Drew Galloway just tackles him.
Right.
Lashley gets him, like, on a triangle choke, and Drew Galloway just picks him up like Rampage Jackson style and bam, slams him. And I remember looking at that and I was like, holy shit! I mean, can you imagine if that happened in a gym that you worked out in? What would you do? Would you be like, would you run away or would you try to get involved in the fight? Or
right. I mean, I'd be the one with the camera. I'm always the one with the camera. I'd be there recording it. If no one else got the footage, I got the footage.
Yeah. So anyways, watch UFC 214. We're going to be doing a live
Facebook Live. Yeah,
Facebook Live, Countdown to Showdown on Gabriel Benjamin. That's Gabe's page.
Yep.
And make sure you tune in at 9:15. We'll be going live then.
All right.
And that's it. And we'll be back next week. And from Beantown to your town, this is the Beantown Beatdown. Matthew Barris.
Gabe Shamas.
Vios con Dios.